Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our next handicapper up, Rob Veno. Rob, welcome in. How you feeling?
I am good today, Drew. How about yourself? I'm going to try here just to talk really loud today, guys. I apologize for the sound problems the last couple of weeks on the best damn college football show. Hopefully this comes through loud and clear. We'll see.
All right, Robbie. So we're starting off with Michigan State, Maryland, right?
We are Michigan State, Maryland.
And we'll end it with Clemson, Notre Dame here, guys. So we're going from 217, 218, the rotation number, down to 235, 236, the middle section of the Saturday College Football Championship Saturday here. We got Michigan State, Maryland to start it off. Robbie, 50.5 being the total, minus 2.5. That's the Terps at home.
Terps at home here. Just a little different starting time, Drew. 7:30 nighttime on the East Coast here. Weather looks like mid-30s. No real wind to worry about. What we do have to worry about here is starting quarterback issues for both sides. Both starters missed last week. You can count out Rocky Lombardi. Even if he plays or if he dresses, he's not going to start. Peyton Thorne, who started last week, is going to be the starting quarterback for Michigan State in this one. Last week, 22 of 39, 325 yards, 3 TDs, and 1 interception. The redshirt freshman looks like he might wrestle this job away from Rocky Lombardi heading into next spring. So Peyton Thorne will be your quarterback. As for Talia Tagovailoa, the quarterback for Maryland, did not play last week. He and 3 defensive starters, although it doesn't get authenticated or verified, there have been many reports I read that say that this is a 4-man case of COVID, and Tagovailoa has not practiced, didn't practice as of yesterday. We'll see what goes on the rest of the week. Head coach Mike Locksley, pretty quiet on the situation. But not only wouldn't it be Tagovailoa, as I mentioned, it would be 3 other defensive starters, including their number 1 tackler, inside linebacker Chance Campbell. You'll lose a middle linebacker, and you'll lose a starting CB. If none of these guys can go, if they can't test negative, I think that's pretty much the situation here. Your quarterback for this one, Drew, last week, they used a walk-on quarterback and in place of a true freshman, Lance Lejeune, who they really like, but just didn't fare too well in the first couple quarters against Rutgers. So then they went to Eric Najarian, a walk-on sophomore. He turned out to play pretty well. The second half was much higher scoring than the first half. Of course, that game goes overtime. Maryland loses in overtime. I think you get a little bit of a plus here in the fact that Maryland last week went up against Greg Schiano. And, you know, he's famed for actually being the guy, although Tony Dungy gets all the credit. Greg Schiano was really the guy who started Tampa 2 defense. The Maryland got to see that last week, and lucky for them, Mel Tucker plays almost the same thing. So the styles will be similar. Your backup quarterback has had a week to look at it and maybe perform pretty well here against Michigan State, which isn't the best defense pass-wise in the world. And I think the same, Drew, of the Michigan State quarterback here. You know, both of these teams are loaded with speed wide receivers. And even if Maryland is kept in that umbrella, you know, where they throw underneath, their wide receivers have game-breaking ability, even off of, you know, a 10, 15-yard catch could go the distance for Michigan State. Their wide receivers, Jalen Naylor, Jaden Reed, both of these guys combined this year, 922 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, 59 catches, explosive wide receivers here. Those numbers, guys, only in 7 games this year. To me, that leads me straight to the 50.5 total. I think that you have a real good chance of getting over here. I think the 2 offenses might end up being the best units on the field in this game. Both passing games should do well. So I think from that perspective, I would probably look over maybe Michigan State as the side if Tagovailoa cannot go. I would say real quick to anybody who says, you know, but Maryland's got the number 3 pass defense in the Big Ten. Really, that's because they have the 14th and worst run defense. Teams that can run have run on them and not thrown the football. Michigan State can't run. They probably will throw. I'll go with Maryland Rutgers over 50.5 in that one.
Good start, Robbie. We're going to need to go a little bit more up tempo with the late start, though. We've got 3 Pac-12 games up next. Welcome into everybody in the chat box. Manuel, Rusty, Travis, Johnny Outlaw. Welcome in as we break down all the college football games on the Saturday card. We got Washington State and Utah. The Utes minus 10 in the hook in Salt Lake. 56 the total here, Robbie.
11:30 a.m. start here, similar to what Utah had last week in Boulder when they started at, I think it was 10 a.m., even earlier in that game, Mountain Time last week. So early morning start here, low mid 30s. Of course, I'm checking weather on all these games and trying to relay that to you guys. 4 mile per hour winds, not much in the way of weather is going to be a problem in this game. What is a problem for Washington State, Drew, is this will only be the second time in 35 days that they've played a football game. They've had more coronavirus cancellations than they have had games. So the last time they played was that Sunday nighter against USC. I think we all remember it. USC leads 35-6 at the half. 3 of those touchdowns were scored on short fields because Washington State got picked off a couple of times. There's certainly, to go along with trying to learn the new run and shoot offense, they just haven't had a lot of on-field time to get it right. Delora's a fantastic freshman quarterback, but they didn't execute well in that game against USC. And now, again, it's been a couple of weeks since they played. Just don't know if they're going to be ready for this. And if you want to compound that problem, the other concern would be when you've only hit live in a game situation one time in 35 days, the last team you want to be playing is Utah. Utah, very physical team. Ty Jordan, their new star running back, had a great game last week. Remember, Utah rips off a 28-point second half last week against Colorado to get the win and cover. But Ty Jordan goes for a $152, 66-yard touchdown run in that total yardage. Slot receiver Britton Covey shows that, when he was out last year, they missed him. He's a fantastic security blanket, big play guy. Jake Bentley, the South Carolina transfer at quarterback, is starting to play better, learn the offense. So Utah, in my mind, rolling on all cylinders right now. Washington State just, staggering home here. I can see why the line is moved from 9 up to 10.5. Probably would look that way. Nothing that I'm overly thrilled with because I don't know that Utah is really defensively a shutdown pass defense type of team. So if Washington State comes and things start clicking, they could score as well. But I would think Utah is the right way to lean here. Washington State is probably going to take some time to get going in this game, just like the USC game when they played a good second half, but it was already too late.
We got Stanford, UCLA, still in the Pac-12 here. UCLA, the Bruins, -7 in the Rose Bowl, 59 the total here, Robbie.
The psyche for this UCLA team is what you worry about, Drew, right? They get beat by USC, last second loss. They're really winning that game the entire way and covering the entire way. Take the lead with 50 seconds left, give up a big kickoff return, and then 2 plays later, give up a touchdown pass on St. Brown, puts them away for good, and gets USC the cover that, like I say, for 59 minutes and about 50 seconds, they really didn't deserve, but they got it. UCLA racks up 549 total yards in that game. DTR, quarterback for UCLA, 30 of 36, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, they did everything right offensively. They had 3 quarterback sacks. Just a tough loss for UCLA. Can they bounce back? That would be your major question here. I would think that under Chip Kelly, they can, Drew, but they're not going to get an easy opponent here because Stanford's playing their best football right now at the end of the season. They're looking pretty good. I think this game boils down to quarterback pressure. UCLA, number 1 in the Pac-12, 21 quarterback sacks. Stanford, very good at not allowing quarterback sacks. They've only allowed 8 in 5 games. So that matchup right there will be key to this one. Stanford, on the other hand, does not sack the quarterback whatsoever. 11th in the Pac-12 in QB sacks. And if you're going to give Thompson Robinson a ton of time to throw the football, probably going to be in trouble. Stanford only has 2 interceptions this season as well. So, those two go hand in glove. I don't know that Stanford's going to be able to stop UCLA. That being said, I'm not so sure UCLA stops Davis Mills and company here. So I think both of these quarterbacks go at each other. The total to me, again, in this UCLA game, like last week, I thought it was low. This week, I think it's low. I think it's at 59 right now. I would probably look at Stanford, UCLA going over the total. If I knew UCLA was mentally right, if their psyche was good, I'd probably have UCLA, but I think over is a safer play.
With the final of the trifecta in the Pac-12, we got Arizona State, Oregon State. Looks like the Sun Devils -7 or -7 in the hook here, depending where we're shopping. 53 the total is Herm Edwards going to play the game up in the Pacific Northwest here, Veno.
They played the game last week, right? 70 points against Arizona. They got Kevin Sumlin canned. I mean, that was touchdown after touchdown from the opening kickoff. So Arizona State, once again, some fluidity starting to build with some of these Pac-12 teams. It's a shame that the season was so short that they didn't decide to start until so late, because really I could see some of these teams developing into really good teams, and Herm has one of them. He's got a young team. I mentioned last week, I like his young wide receiving core. They threw the ball well. They have the #1 rushing offense in the Pac-12 right now. Here's your problem. This is your one weather game, and it happens in Corvallis once, twice a year. But in this one, which is going to start at 7:30 at night, in between the time frame that this game is played, 7:30 and 11 on the Pacific Coast, you're going to have anywhere from 80 to 90% chance of rain. It'll probably be fairly steady. I think I saw 1/4 of an inch of rainfall during that time frame. So it's going to be a wet one here. And Oregon State might be without Jermar Jefferson, their top running back. Without him, Oregon State really doesn't achieve any balance. They're much less of a running game without him. So we'll see. Right now, he said he's just rehabbing and trying to get ready. He hurt his ankle, for those who don't know, in the second half of last week's game, sat out the entire second half against Stanford. Tristan Gebbia, the former starting quarterback who got hurt and then turned the keys over to Chance Nolan. Chance Nolan, Drew, I have to say, has probably been better than Gebbia was. And perhaps he should have been the starting quarterback all along. 3 TDs, no interceptions again last week. I don't worry about the quarterback position, but I do worry about them having to throw it far too often without the ability to run against the Arizona State defense. I don't know that Arizona State's going to have any difficulty where Jaden Daniels and company are concerned, but the rain is an issue. And for that reason, you know, if this were just a couple of points higher, maybe at 55, 55.5, I would have gone under. This is a field turf, a slick type surface. You can make both arguments. Guys are going to fall down. Maybe the defenders fall down because they don't know where the offensive receivers are going, but it works both ways. And I think with the running quarterback in Daniels, it might work against him on a couple of tries. It might work against Nolan, who also is a dual threat a couple of times here. Don't have a real good way to play this, but I will point out that there's a revenge motive here for Arizona State if they choose to, you know, be of that mindset. They lose 35-34 last year, score a touchdown on the very last play of the game. Herm chooses to go for 2. They don't get it. They lose by 1 point. So as you said earlier, Drew, you play to win the game, right? Herm went for the 2, tried to win the game, didn't do it. I don't know that that's a big revenge motive angle. I didn't apply it very much in my handicap. I would probably be ASU or nothing. But if Jefferson can go, I'd be off of the game entirely.
And Robbie, it looks like in the chat box they're saying it sounds good, so we're good to go on the sound issues. That's always good stuff. Thanks for letting us know that, guys, in the chat box. Shout out to Pete joining us, Proud Babylonian as well, Corey Williams, Travis, all you guys, welcome in. Ashley Waite from the nice island of Hawaii. Aloha to you as well. Guys, if you're watching on replay, feel free to drop a comment below. Please smash the like button if you're liking the content. We got Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. I'm on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Check out Robbie, WagerTalk.com. All sports year to date up 189% return on investment. 7 of the last 9 in college football. He's knocking them down in his 5% college football blue chip total, 16-9 since 2008. So check him out, WagerTalk.com. Seeing him well in college football and really all sports overall. Number 2 in all of WagerTalk.com. So it's coming down to the end here, Robbie. Might finish number 1, might finish number 2. Either way, in the black, not in the red. We got Big Ten championship game up next. early start, I believe, 12 noon Eastern. Could be wrong on that, though. 229-230, the rotation numbers here. Top 15 matchup, Robbie. Northwestern at Ohio State. Minus 21. That's the Buckeyes. 57 the total in this one.
But I'd really like to take the 21 here, Drew. I mean, Ohio State has been hindered somewhat in continuity of games each week, right? They didn't play last week because of coronavirus, so they haven't been able to play steadily. Pat Fitzgerald Northwestern team has for the most part, and they certainly have the defense that can, you can't stop Ohio State, but perhaps for a few series right off the bat, they can keep them under control. So I would like to take the 21, but I'm just afraid that the dam will burst like I've seen happen in this Big Ten championship game, time in and time out. I go back to Wisconsin and their fantastic defense against Cardell Jones. They get blown out in that game. I go back to a Northwestern game where they hung in there with Ohio State and then got blown out. I think, though, that this total, Drew, in really good conditions here, is probably a bit too low. Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald, let's face it, he's going to do what he does. He's going to try and shorten this game, play defense, and be around in the fourth quarter and try and sneak out with a win. However, when that game plan goes south, then all of a sudden you're down by 2 touchdowns. You have to be able to throw the football and get back into it. I'm not sure that they can do it successfully enough to come from behind. That's probably why I'm not on Northwestern. But I do think that in the end, they can get enough points to get this thing up to 58. To me, you could see a 38-20 final. For me, I could see that pretty clearly. Ohio State likely to get in that vicinity. If Northwestern is able to do a little more offensively than I think, then it really gets over the total. Out of all the championship games that we're going to go through, it's probably my least favorite, and I haven't bet a single thing in this game yet, but at 57.5 with the key number of 58 available, the way this thing figures to play out, and it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what these two coaches are going to do. Ohio State has to play for style points, right? They're in that fight for the Final Four. Some would say all they have to do is win, but if they only win by a field goal, Drew, I'm not so sure that the committee will be so fast to place them in that Final Four. I think they want to win by margin. We'll see. Right now, the only lean I would have is towards over 57.5, simply because the numbers come down that far. I think 58 is a key number in this game.
I think I said the word at Ohio State. It's actually a neutral site game in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, so controlled atmosphere in that one. Also a controlled atmosphere, fast track for the Big 12 championship game. We got Oklahoma and Iowa State. This in the house that Jerry's built there in Arlington, Texas. Looks like the Oklahoma Sooners, Robbie, -5 in the hook here, 58.5 being the total. We got the Sooners versus the Cyclones, Oklahoma versus Iowa State, Rob.
Boy, another one where you could make conflicting arguments, Drew. I mean, if Ohio State Northwestern is my least favorite game to get involved in, then maybe this is my second least game to get involved in here. I go back to the first game, right? Because you and I went through a lot of, in fact, the next 3 games we'll talk about, you and I already discussed yesterday on this show, so we'll be real brief there. But we had rematches, and you can go back to those rematches and kind of get a feel for what happened. You have that here with Oklahoma, Iowa State as well. This game opened Oklahoma -4. According to my power ratings, was too low. Neutral site. But I had Oklahoma -6. And remember, earlier this season in Ames, Iowa, the Oklahoma Sooners were a 7.5-point favorite on the road. So to open 4, I can understand why people went out and took Oklahoma. It's since gone up to 5.5. First game, Oklahoma leads 30-23, fourth quarter. Iowa State comes back. They score a touchdown off a big kick return. They tie the game, and then they go ahead and win it on the ensuing drive. Oklahoma tries to get back down the field. They get picked off in Iowa State territory. The game ends. Iowa State goes crazy. So you have a real close 37-30 game. And I know that Iowa State is probably going to be a darling of a lot of bettors here. I mean, if people are going to pull the trigger on an underdog in these games come Saturday, and I speak of the public here, then Iowa State's probably going to be that underdog. Breece Hall making a big name for himself at running back. Brock Purdy already made a name for himself at quarterback. Iowa State, I think they set at Number 6 last night when we saw the rankings come out, I think Iowa State is in somewhat of a position if a bunch of things happen to get into the Final Four playoff. But I think it might just be a little bit too low priced here. Let me say this. I heard a lot of discussion within the last 12 to 18 hours of how both of these teams, both of them, are getting much better as the season rolls on. But the only team I hear with an arrow pointing towards that being a negative is Oklahoma. And the reason being this: Oklahoma's last 3 wins are Kansas. Who cares if you blow out Kansas? Oklahoma State without Spencer Sanders. Remember, he got hurt, knocked out in the first quarter of that game, and Oklahoma rolled from there. They beat Baylor. 4 games ago, they beat Texas Tech. And people want to point to that. Yeah, Oklahoma's getting better, but who have they played? They've really made a lot of hay on bad Big 12 teams. Nobody wants to say that about Iowa State. They're giving Iowa State a lot of credit for these 3 wins, Drew. These are the only 3 wins, only 3, that Iowa State has won by margin all season long. 52-22 over Kansas. Who cares? Oklahoma beat them even worse. 45-0 over Kansas State. Remember, in that game, I don't think Kansas State even met the minimum of 53 players. I think they played that game under the minimum. They agreed to play it, but they were coronavirus ridden and they got run. Remember how the line steamed in that game, because everybody knew once the report came out, Iowa State beats a coronavirus-stricken team. And then their last win, they come back, they beat West Virginia 42-6 in a game where, you know, it was a bit of a surprise because West Virginia had not been beaten like that all season long. But how about West Virginia was coming off of coronavirus running through their program as well. They hadn't played for 2 weeks because their team was hurt so bad. So you get a team off a long layoff that had a lot of coronavirus cases. I don't know that I give Iowa State any credit for those big wins. So, you know, if you're going to call one living off a bad schedule, then I would call the other one living off a bad schedule as well. You know, Iowa State's proven to be a thorn in Oklahoma's side last couple of years, but for some reason, this just sticks with me as a game where Iowa State's probably too respected at this point, and maybe Oklahoma gets the victory. But again, it's not something I'm thrilled with, Drew. I could see it going either way, and like the Ohio State Northwestern game, it probably is an in-game bet for me.
All right, Robbie, just a couple games left here as we got a championship row here as we head to the Sun Belt Conference Championship. Up first, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific kick here. This one in Conway, North Carolina. That's coastal Carolina there. Hosting Louisiana Lafayette. This on ESPN, 55 being the total. Coastal Carolina, the shot declares -3.5. Home favorites here, Robbie. We got the Ragin' Cajuns and the Chanticleers, 2 good mascot names.
And once again, for those watching today, go ahead back to yesterday's show where me and Drew went through these games pretty well in depth. I think we both came to the conclusion that we liked the points in this game with UL Lafayette. Go back to the first game where the total yardage gap was 1 yard. 414 gained by Coastal, 413 gained by Lafayette, a game where Coastal wins on a field goal with 4 seconds left to play. We went through the personnel on each team here where UL Lafayette, a better recruiting team than Coastal Carolina. If you just take names on paper, Lafayette's the more talented team. This year, the better team unit has been Coastal Carolina. But UL Lafayette, not one to really get shoved around the way other teams have by Coastal Carolina in this game. Last week, we'll throw that game in the garbage, the 42-38 win over Troy State for Coastal because they were just in a bad situation off a big win. Look ahead to this. I think, Drew, again, you know, just to be real brief, the one difference in this game that both of us saw here was the quarterback play of Levi Lewis and the big play ability of more than one guy on their team. In the backfield, it could be a big play from Elijah Mitchell. In the backfield, it could be a big play from Trey Regis. In the backfield, it could be a big play from Chris Smith, the speedster. The wide receiving core. UL Lafayette has multiple game-breaking threats where Coastal has maybe one at every position. Grayson McCall, it'll be his first time in this position, playing for a Sun Belt championship, playing for possibly a New Year's Six bowl game. Certainly, C.J. Marable out of the backfield has been good, and Isaiah Likely at tight end as well. I just think ULL, with the revenge factor, and one more time, I'll say that they got to this doorstep last year. They played Appalachian State in a very high-scoring game. They almost got the win. They didn't win. They're back again this year. I think Billy Napier's team is hungry, not that Coastal isn't. But I would just prefer to take points when I can make real good cases for both teams winning this game. You have a field goal game the first time. Why not a field goal game the second time? You're getting 3 and a hook. Certainly it's down off of the opener, but I think the point's worth taking with UL Lafayette.
Yeah, I think that push towards Louisiana is the right side as well. Guys, I like Louisiana Lafayette, one of the biggest plays of the weekend here, plus 3.5. A lot of the reasons Robbie talked about, top to bottom roster talent, Louisiana has recruited very well. And where Coastal Carolina has really made their hay is pushing people around up front in the Sun Belt and, against Kansas. Their offensive line dominance and letting their QB McCall and the running backs really have a heyday that way. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Louisiana. They really weren't able to do that too much, not like they've been able to against the other Sun Belt teams when they played the first time this season. It was a weekday night game. It went back and forth. It was a good game. It's just Coastal Carolina hit pretty much. It was crazy the amount of third down success they had in that game. I don't know that that's, so much repeatable this time around. Louisiana, coming off of that loss, a little bit of revenge mode. I don't use revenge too much, but their offensive rush yards, 5.4 yards per rush. A lot of that is their quarterback, Lewis, like Robbie just talked about. And guys, if you haven't seen Louisiana play, he's more of a athlete, a really good athlete, like one of the best athletes in the conference, almost one of those guys like Antoine Randall L type, where I could see him actually getting a look at an NFL roster, not necessarily playing the quarterback position, but running around, making plays. Louisiana's defense, less than 5 yards per play, which in Sun Belt ranking is very, very good. And they're playing really good football right now. 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers by over 30 points, meaning, and that's not winning the games by 30 points. That's the market was mispricing the Raging Cajuns by over 30 points. So they've been really killing the market, cash and bets. Not that Coastal hasn't, but it's just Coastal. That information's out there. If you even watched college football for an hour this year, about the Coastal Carolina story. I don't think a lot of people know about the Raging Cajuns and how good they are, Robbie, sitting at 9-1 with their only loss, that midweek game against Coastal Carolina by a field goal where it really went back and forth. I think the ball bounced Coastal's way. So I'll take the hook on the 3 with the Louisiana Lafayette Raging Cajuns. We got Clemson here at Notre Dame. Actually, it's not at Notre Dame. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Clemson, Notre Dame for the ACC championship. Up next, 4 o'clock Eastern kick, Robbie. We got Clemson, minus 10.5 point favorites, 60 being the total. I think it's a little bit rich here on the Clemson Tigers. This is another one I like the underdog, Robbie. I think the dog, could be barking. I like him 10.5 though, Robbie. Ian Book, I don't think he gets enough credit. We talked about this one. All-time winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. Anytime we're talking Notre Dame history, that's something special. Dual threat guy, Brian Kelly, good coach here. Their offensive line good. Their defense very, very good. I think they could go toe-to-toe with Clemson. I'll take the 10.5 with the Irish. What are you thinking here, Clemson versus Notre Dame?
Yeah, and we know that the biggest selling point on Clemson here, Drew, is the fact that Trevor Lawrence didn't play in the first game. But I think you could respond to that by saying, well, how much better can Trevor Lawrence do than what Clemson did in the first game? They threw for 439 yards. Is Trevor Lawrence going to throw for 639? The key for Clemson would be on the defensive side of the football, where they didn't have 4 starters, where they'll get those guys back, and can they stop Notre Dame from doing what they did? I think if you're on Clemson, you should really be pointing to a defensive positive in this game rather than Trevor Lawrence, because I just don't know how much more he can do than what was done offensively by Clemson in that particular game. Notre Dame, they've been without 2 of their best linemen. for the last 2 weeks. Now they'll get one back. They're still going to, I think, be without their starting center. This offensive line for Notre Dame, for those of you who are interested in this type of stuff, is ranked as the best offensive line in college football by Pro Football Focus with their analytics that they use to grade out offensive linemen. So this is no pushover offensive line. They come with that steamroller type mentality. They're going to run the football. Book, as you mentioned, Drew, in that post-game conference, I don't know if it was after the Clemson game or after the next game, Brian Kelly was asked. A reporter wrote an article saying that, or he was listing his top 10 quarterbacks in college football this year, and Ian Book was not one of them. And Brian Kelly was asked about it, and Brian Kelly said, I don't know. I think he's one of the top 10. He wasn't going to get involved. But Ian Book was asked the same question when his interview time came, and he said he uses that as motivation. The guy runs. He makes plays when there's nothing there. He throws the ball very accurately. No, they don't have the downfield speed, wide receiver-wise, that Clemson has. But their defense, again, I'll just turn to this. I don't know that there's a more explosive offense in the nation than North Carolina. You could sell me on a lot of teams being equal to North Carolina, but you're not going to sell me on teams being superior to North Carolina offensively with the balance that they have and the explosiveness that they have. In the second half of that game, Notre Dame shut them out. They forced 6 punts and got an interception. I don't know that they'll win this game, Drew, because I think Clemson's defensive starters returning will make the difference, and I think Clemson will win the game. But I think you said it best in the beginning when you said too rich. 10.5 is a lot of points. Clemson could win this game by 6, 7, 8, even 10. 31-21, 38-28 in that vicinity. And you've got a Notre Dame cover. So I'm probably slightly toward the Notre Dame side here, plus the 10.5. And again, the line's not unjustified. My power ratings call for Clemson to be a 10-point favorite, but I just think the way the personnel matches up, the way Notre Dame's defense has gotten better, I think that you probably are safer taking the 10.5. We'll see.
It's going to be a good one, Robbie. Saturday afternoon for the ACC championship game. I mean, minus 10.5 and 60 being the total. So that's telling us Clemson 35, Notre Dame 24. I mean, I could see it, but I don't know. You tell me, 10.5 with Notre Dame. I'll take that in a competitive game. We're likely going to cash our tickets. So more times than not, when given the option, I'll take the points. Robbie, Tulsa versus Cincinnati, to tell you the truth, I think Mid-Major Matt and I covered it, but I know you know a lot about these two teams, and I think when we were talking off camera, you wanted to hit this. So if we hit it twice, that's better than not hitting it at all. Tulsa, Cincinnati minus 14, 47 being the total. Any quick thoughts here for the AAC championship game?
Yeah, again, Drew, we'll triple hit it because you and I hit this game yesterday, but I think I will add this because overnight in doing more preparation for this game, I become more and more solidified with the Cincinnati side in this game. I know the numbers going towards Tulsa, 16.5 down to 14. Again, if you want to hear all the reasoning that we had yesterday, go back to the Best Damn College Football Show and replay it. The weather's not an issue. Cincinnati's at home. Cincinnati's defense, certainly the better unit on the field, as good as Tulsa's played. Cincinnati's better. I think you alluded yesterday, Drew, to the fact that you just don't see Tulsa having enough playmakers and offensive explosiveness to dent this particular defense. They have held SMU, Houston, Memphis, Central Florida, the 4 best offenses not named Cincinnati in the AAC. They held all those teams to season lows in total yardage. Tulsa's been a come-from-behind team all season long. They dig ditches, and then they somehow climb out of them with miraculous comebacks. I just don't know that it happens here. And I think when we saw that poll come out last night, that probably infuriates Cincinnati a little bit more because they haven't been on the field. They've dropped all the way to number 9. Their chances of getting in that Final Four playoff are slim to none. But they're the highest-ranked group of 6 team. A victory here puts them in a New Year's 6 bowl game. I could see them slowly, gradually extending this lead. I think if Tulsa's forced to come from behind, they're in trouble because Cincy will force turnovers. And Desmond Ridder, of course. I don't think anybody thought he would have the season that he's had, but his numbers the last 6 games they've played, and their explosiveness from outside the red zone, something that we never attributed to Cincinnati, even to start the season, is explosiveness, big playability. Oh, they can score quick. You're always worried laying points with Cincinnati because you think they can't score, somewhat like San Diego State. But they can score now. I think I'm more apt to be on the Cincinnati side. The last 12 hours or so, like I say, doing some work on that game have convinced me that Cincinnati minus 14 is the right way to go.
He's Robbie Veno. Check him out. WagerTalk.com. All sports year to date. 189% ROI, return on investment. College football hot streak. 7 of his last 9 in college football. 5% in college football. They've been good. 143 and 93. That's 61% since 2007. So going back long term there with his top plays in college football. Been a great bet. Check him out. WagerTalk.com. On Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. I'm on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Instagram, TikTok, whatever way you guys want. You can check us both out. If you're watching on replay, feel free to drop a line below. Shout out to the chat box. Everybody in here having a good time with all different kinds of bets. We got the Czar, Adam saying Cincinnati's the side. Corey Williams, he's liking Cincinnati as well. 14 points may not be enough here. So shout out to Deadhead Money as well, watching on Periscope. Robbie, anything else you wanted to throw out before we shut this down?
No, I think we're good, Drew. Just wish everybody good luck this weekend. Out of what we just covered, if the folks watching are looking for me to give you what I think would be the best bet out of all of those, I think your best bet would be UCLA Stanford over the 59. I think that game makes it there. Chip Kelly's offense really humming right now. Davis Mills and company for Stanford will take advantage of the UCLA pass defense. So for those watching that are looking for a best bet out of the group we just gave, go ahead and hit that. If you're looking for plays, I'm already up with a couple of big plays at WagerTalk.com. So go ahead and let's get this championship weekend off to a good start. And real quick, I was going through bowl preparation because you and I are going to do a bowl show next week, but there are 6-8 bowl games next week from Monday to Thursday. So we'll be loaded with bowl action next week.
Wait, Robbie, so when is the first bowl game?
Monday.
Well, how are we going to hit that one then?
We're probably going to miss it. And there's 2 on Tuesday, the day we would do the best damn college football show. There's 2 games that day. All
right, Robbie. And are they day games or they're both night games?
The Monday one I think is night. The other one I think was spread between 4 and 8:30, but I can give you the exact time right now. Tulane and Nevada go at 3:30 East.
Okay.
So we do it at 2 o'clock East. We do it, right? And the UCF Brigham Young game is that night, Drew. It's 7 o'clock that night, Tuesday night.
All right. We got to do that. Robbie, I'm wanting to go to that game. So we got to do that one. So we'll be going this from the Northeast where you are in the state of Florida. But yeah, best damn college football show. Let's do the bowl game look aheads and give both of our opinions. Maybe pick on every game with a best bet. So yeah, guys, mark your calendars, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 o'clock Eastern time. On Tuesday, best damn college football show. Robbie Veno and I will do the bowl game look ahead podcast and hopefully get you some winners, right, Robbie?
Yeah, that gets the Ralph Michaels pen raise bowl game shows. We love those.
Oh yeah, it's some of my favorite shows of the whole year, Robbie. I mean, I love the every game on the board, but the bowl game edition is really a lot of fun.
And Drew, the matchups are good. The ones that are out are good. I mean, once you start digging into them yourself, you'll find we'll have a lot to talk about.
And you know what's really funny, especially about this year? The opening numbers are out at Circa here. And, Circa's kind of, I guess, a leader in the marketplace is what I would call them in terms of kind of stepping out even in front of the offshore market, Robbie, ahead of Bet Online and Chris in terms of opening up the market, which something that I'll really tip my cap to is when a legal sports book opens the market, it's really saying something because if you go bet into a bad number, you're going to get paid. I mean, if you win the bet, whereas sometimes if you bet into a bad number, and I won't use any names offshore, you'll get an email back saying, hey, we canceled your bet. That was a bad number. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's kind of cheating, but you have no regulation to go to. So hats off to Circa. And one thing I wanted to say about that was their sportsbook director, Matt Metcalf, he tweeted something out that I found was very, very interesting in that this bowl season, they're not all the same limits. He's putting out the numbers and some of them are $1,000 limits, and then some of them are 2,000, some of them are 3,000. So it's like they have different confidence levels in their numbers of bowl season, and that's the first time I've ever seen that, Robbie.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, that is. I've never seen that, Drew. So yeah, that of course in this year, in this environment, I can't blame them for that. But certainly it's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, no, I don't blame them either. Just, I mean, anytime you're first to market, I don't like when people kind of make fun of them, like, oh, they're only taking 500 or 1,000. I actually think when people do that, they're just trying to make themselves look good, because it's the opening market. You go open it if you want to take bigger limits. You know what I mean? It's hard to do. So, yeah, that's just something I wanted to throw out here on the podcast in terms of, I think there's really value as a sports bettor getting some information and getting out ahead of some of these moves. So, guys, come back and join us next week, 11 a.m. Pacific time, Best Damn College Football Show. We'll do the look ahead podcast towards college football bowl season. But Robbie, I know I asked you already, but we talked some more. Anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
I'm under about 6 or 7 inches of snow right now, Drew, with about 7 more coming. So we're snowed in here. We'll just want to wish everybody good luck. Thanks for watching once again. And this weekend, as Drew and I have both said, bowl games. I don't think you'll find 2 guys at WagerTalk or Sports Memo that love the bowl season, the traditional bowl season, the way we do. So we put that show on for you next week. Like I say, a lot of good matchups. Look forward to everybody tuning in and watching. Thanks, Johnny Outlaw, Abel, all the trendsetters, Ashley, all the people who lead the people through the gates to watch this show. We appreciate all you guys.
For sure, guys. Shout out to the chat box like always. And guys, feel free to drop a comment below if you're watching on replay. Please smash the like button. And for Robbie Veno, I'm Drew Martin. Guys, that does it for the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. We'll be back at 3 o'clock in 5 minutes with Minty Bets, and then followed with Ski Profit for the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. So come back and join us here in 5 minutes.